What would you do if your HOA president demanded the keys to your private gate and threatened your peace when you refused? Because let me tell you, that knock wasn't just rude. It rattled the glass in my front door, sharp and insistent, like somebody trying to win an argument before it even started. There I was, mug of coffee still steaming in my hand, wandering across the hardwood in my new house in Stillwater, Minnesota, thinking Saturday mornings were meant for peace. Maybe a slow jog along the lake, some quiet work at my laptop later. But instead, I opened the door and, bam, drama walks right in. Standing on my porch was this woman, tall, trim, with a short blonde bob so perfectly cut it had to be deliberate. Like her whole look screamed, I run things here. And sure enough, pin on her lapel, HOA, real official, she says, I'm Joanne Prentice, president of the Lakeshore Association. We need a copy of your back gate key today. No hello, no welcome, just straight to business. She even called me Mr. Whitlow, like we were in court or something. Now this gate. It's at the very back of my yard, looking out over the lake, and it was the reason I bought the place in the first place. My little slice of peace after too many years in too many cities. She goes, you'll provide us a key, so board members and any resident who needs quicker access can use it. It's only fair. And I'm standing there, realizing my coffee doesn't even taste warm anymore, thinking, fair? My yard, my deed, my gate. With all respect, I say, trying not to sound as irritated as I felt, that gate's part of my yard. It's private, not community property. She smirks, arms folded, like she's already decided I'm difficult. That gate's the shortest route to the lake. You can't keep it locked just because you feel like it. The community expects cooperation. I tell her, as calmly as I can, that privacy is the entire reason I bought the house, that her rules don't stretch to my fence line. She gives me this thin smile. Oh, you really want to be that neighbor, huh? The one nobody likes? That's the reputation you'll start with. I didn't answer her right away. I looked out past her, at the lake glinting through the trees, remembering why I'd moved there in the first place. Finally, I said, steady as I could, I won't be giving out my key. That porch got quiet, except for my dog shifting behind me. She gritted her teeth. You're making this difficult. The board won't be pleased. Then she stomped off down the path, every step punctuating her point. I leaned against the door and exhaled, thinking about my mother's old advice. Stand firm on what's yours or someone else will decide for you. I just hadn't expected to be tested on it so soon. That afternoon, trimming the hedges by the back fence, I noticed neighbors slowing as they passed, little looks towards my gate, half smiles, nods. It doesn't take much for word to spread in a neighborhood like this. By that night, sitting on my deck with a beer, replaying that conversation, I knew this was just the beginning. And I was right. Because the next week, Joanne came back, but she didn't come alone. Let me back up a sec, just so you understand why I chose that house in the first place. 20 years in big cities, San Francisco, Dallas, Phoenix, always moving for work, always in the grind. And by the time I hit 44, I wanted something else. An old friend once told me, you can make money anywhere, but peace? That's hard to find. I didn't get it back then, but when I saw that brick house on Lake McCusick Drive, backyard sloping to the water, wrought iron gates separating my grass from the lake, it just clicked. This is mine, I thought, the kind of peace you can feel in your bones. But you know what? In neighborhoods like this, ownership doesn't mean control. The Lakeshore Association had rules for everything: grass height, mailbox color, trash can placement. I skimmed the handbook and shrugged. No big deal. I wasn't looking to pick fights over grass. First week, the neighbors were all charm. Banana bread from Ronald and Beverly down the street, fishing tips, warnings that the HOA could be strict, but not so bad if you played along. Nobody warned me about Joanne. Sandra, the neighbor, mentioned she'd just become president, ran on community unity, promised easier lake access, and, well, most people thought it was harmless. But Joanne, she wanted control, and my gate was in her way. One afternoon, while unpacking boxes, I overheard neighbors outside, talking about the new guy and the gate, laughing, quiet when I came out. Gossip moves fast. The irony is, if someone had just asked, I probably would have let them use the gate now and then. But demanding it, acting like my privacy was just a technicality? Not a chance. Later that week at the cafe, Ronald Greer pulled me aside. Don't get on Joanne's bad side, he whispered. She's got pull with the board. Folks here don't like waves. I tried to laugh it off, but I could see in his eyes he was half warning, half resigned. Like Joanne always won. Back home that night, hand on the lock, I thought, this isn't about shortcuts. It's about boundaries. That gate was mine. But I knew, deep down, someone was already plotting to take it away. Sure enough, the next time Joanne showed up, it wasn't just words. It was a whole plan. This time, she brought paperwork. The bylaws grant U.S. authority to manage community access points, she announced, waving her folder. Your gate qualifies. I just laughed. That gate's on my survey, Joanna. It's not yours. She leaned in, dropped her voice. You're new. You don't know how things work. This community relies on cooperation. The board expects you to contribute, not block access. I said what needed saying. I expect my rights to be respected. Check the survey yourself. She pressed her lips tight. Are you really making this about technicalities? Property law isn't a technicality. I shot back, and behind her, I saw a neighbor slow his walk, eavesdropping. She threatened board action, fines, bad blood. I told her to show me the bylaw that let them take my key. Her final shot. You'll regret making this harder than it has to be. Then she turned and left. That night, I dug out the HOA handbook, read every line about common areas and pathways. No mention of my gate. Just the lake, not the private entrance. And I wondered, how many folks gave in just because someone said the board expects it? The tension ramped up. Neighbors began avoiding me. Sandra crossed the street when she saw me. Even Ronald's nods got shorter. I got a call from Joanne. The board will be reviewing your refusal. Fines may be imposed. For what? I snapped. For refusing to hand over something you don't own? Take me to court. You're not being neighborly, Mr. Whitlow, she warned. People talk. And then she hung up. It was like the whole neighborhood started watching, waiting to see if I'd cave. But I didn't. Next Saturday, I'm making coffee when the doorbell rings again. This time, Joanne's not alone. She's got Victor Braun, the treasurer, clipboard in hand like a prop. We're here to remind you that cooperation is the backbone of community, he intoned. If everyone draws hard lines, people suffer. So I'm just supposed to hand over my key for your convenience? I asked. That's not how property works. Joanne tried to spin it. It's about harmony. I told them what I saw. This is about control, not harmony. Victor threatened penalties. I demanded they show me the bylaw. Silence. Joanne's eyes flashed. Do you want to make enemies? I didn't move here for enemies. I moved here for peace, but not at the cost of my rights. Neighbors watched the standoff from behind windows and open doors. It was obvious this was about more than just a gate. The subtle isolation grew. People stopped waving, kids crossed the street. Sandra, who used to chat, now barely met my eyes. One day, trimming hedges, I overheard. If he wanted to fit in, he'd just hand over the key. I called my sister down in Arkansas, told her everything. She just laughed. So she thinks she's sheriff of Lake McCusick now? Pretty much, I said. You know what Mom would say. Yeah, I replied, stand firm. Don't let them decide for you. That call steadied me, but I knew the storm was still building. The next weekend, the pressure escalated. Joanne, Victor, and a third board member I'd never met, Calvin, showed up. Calvin, all buttoned up, started documenting everything in a notebook, my refusal, their requests. I nearly laughed. You think scribbling in a notebook makes this official? This is harassment. Joanne's voice got sharp. We are the governing body. If you won't work with us, we will impose penalties. Show me the bylaw. I snapped. Joanne leaned in and hissed. Everyone here already sees you as the outsider. Keep pushing and you'll never belong. I said it flat. I didn't buy this house to belong to you. They left, neighbors peeking from blinds, watching the show. That night, I started reading up on legal rights. HOA harassment, Minnesota statutes. Turns out, I wasn't alone. Stories everywhere. Bullied homeowners, overreaching boards. So I did what I should have done earlier. Called the Stillwater police, reported harassment, made sure they'd come if things escalated. And escalate they did. The next week, the pounding at my door was almost routine, but this time Joanne brought a full delegation, including Elaine Foster, the board's sharpest tongue. This is your final warning, Joanne barked. Hand over the key or we'll fine you daily and notify your mortgage lender. I burst out laughing. You think you can threaten my mortgage over a gate you don't own? Elaine got cold. We've handled this before. It never ends well for the homeowner. I held up my phone. I already spoke to the police. Keep it up and I'll call them now. Their confidence cracked. The police, they hadn't counted on that. So I did it. Dialed. A few minutes later, 2 officers pulled up, Officer Winton and Officer Martinez. Joanne tried to cut in, but Officer Winton stopped her. Is this gate on your property deed? Yes, sir, I said. Survey marks it as mine. He turned to Joanne. If it's not a shared amenity in the HOA documents, you have no authority. Martinez added, harmony isn't the law. Property lines are. If you keep pressing, it's harassment. The neighbors came out to watch. Victor looked pale. Calvin's hand shook. Joanne's smirk was gone. The silence after that was deafening. The officers told them to leave. As they retreated, neighbors started whispering. Some looked away, but Sandra gave me a tiny smile. I finally felt the tide shifting. By Sunday, my standoff with Joanne was the only thing people talked about. Some said the cops threatened to arrest her. Some whispered about illegal fines. Didn't matter. Her power was broken. The next evening, Sandra crossed the street, told me, good for you. Nobody stood up to her before. Ronald apologized for not backing me sooner. Joanna can make your life hell over trash cans or weeds. Easier to keep your head down. Easier for you, I said, but not for me. But Joanne wasn't finished. I found a letter taped to my door, $100 a day fine, starting immediately. I called my sister. She just said, get a lawyer. Don't let her bully you. So I went to the next HOA meeting. Let me tell you, that night the room was packed. Tension crackled as Joanne tried to spin the story. Mr. Whitlow refuses to comply. I cut her off. Maybe you should explain why the police had to tell you to stop harassing me. The room went dead silent. Sandra stood up, said what everyone was thinking. You've taken this too far. It's about control, not lake access. Ronald chimed in, intimidation. That's what this is. Elaine finally admitted she'd checked the documents. The gate's not community property. Andre's within his rights. Gasps. Joanne banged her gavel, but nobody was listening. Victor said maybe it was time for new leadership. Talk of a recall vote swept the room. 2 weeks later, Joanne resigned before the vote even finished. Her power, built on fear, was shattered not by me alone, but by everyone who finally saw through her. Now, the neighborhood feels lighter. People wave, kids play near my yard again. Even Ronald jokes. You rattled her cage, son. But not everyone's a fan. Joanne still spins her newsletters, painting me as the villain. But the cracks are showing, and people aren't so quick to side with her anymore. One afternoon, Victor approached, quietly admitting, you're right. This went too far. She's losing ground. Even Elaine, the board's enforcer, came by. I checked the documents. That gate's yours. I'm tired of battles that don't make sense. And that's the thing. Peace doesn't always mean silence. Sometimes you have to stand firm, even if it makes you the outcast, even if it's lonely for a while. Boundaries matter, not just in land, but in dignity. The meeting that finally ended it all was packed, everyone in the neighborhood watching as the board, reluctantly, admitted they'd overstepped. Neighbors stood up, one by one, saying what nobody had dared to say before. Sandra, Ronald, even Elaine. When it was over, Joanna's reign was done. I still walked to my gate some evenings, watched the lake shimmer in the sunset, and whisper the same words as the day I moved in. This is mine. Not just the land, but my right to peace, to draw a line and keep it. So if you've ever been pushed around by someone who thinks their rules matter more than your boundaries, remember, silence feeds bullies, and sometimes, standing up for yourself is the only way to remind a community what real respect looks like. If you found something in this story, comment where you're from, share your own HOA nightmares, or tell me, what would you have done? Because sometimes the smallest gate can open up the biggest fight for what's right.